you've got an impressive resume with your with your film credits. Like you wrote Sherlock Holmes, the Robert Downey Jr. version,
Yeah.
Invictus. I never say it right.
Invictus.
Invictus,
Yes.
incredible film. And then you've got one coming up that I'm just fascinated by. The president is missing.
Well, no, that's no longer coming up. That got basically COVID killed that. We were making the pilot on March 13th of 2020, when the entire world shut down. We stopped stopped production, got on airplanes, and all went home, taking the virus with us, I'm sure. So that never recovered from COVID. Actors moved on, and so it was a wonderful experience. But one of the tragedies, of my career is that we never got to put that out, because we had a killer first season lined up, and it never happened. And that happens more often than you'd think in the movie industry for one reason or another.
Deeply disappointed. I was looking at the IMDb page and the cast that you had lined up. I thought that's going to be incredible. Christopher McQuarrie's involved. He
Yeah.
doesn't do bad things. Did you get? I guess I know that's adapted from the James Patterson, Bill Clinton novel.
Yeah. Yes.
And I wanted to ask: did you have any chance while you were working on the screenplay? Did you have any chance to interact with them?
Oh yes, a lot. They're producers on the show. They were producers on the show. So I went to President Clinton's offices in Harlem and had to go and pitch what we were doing to him. And I had many questions for him. I got a lot of help from his staff. Jim Patterson was incredibly generous and helpful, because if there's anyone who knows how to write a hook, he does, and to get you to turn the next page. And so yeah, it was an amazing experience. We shot it in Baltimore, which is one of my favorite East Coast cities. I really enjoyed it, and I've made lasting friends from that production. Actually, I'm just finishing up a script now for David Oyelowo, who was our lead, and that will hopefully go into production. The movie business, just because you write it doesn't mean it's going to be a movie. In fact, I would say that very few of my screenplays have been made. And then on the other hand, there's a credit arbitration process for whether your name gets on the film or not. And so there are other films that I've worked on quite extensively that I didn't get credit on. That's common. That's normal. That's normal in the business. It hurts, but it's normal.
You still get paid though, right?
Yes, but not as much. You don't get royalties. You only get royalties if your name's on it.
Yeah, I just have known some screenwriters who've made a handsome living writing all their lives and haven't had any films actually made.
Yeah. That's more common than you'd think. So, and it's frustrating because I don't know about you, but I have to fall in love with whatever I'm working on to want to work on it. And so you fall in love with these are all your children, even the children that have been really interfered with by many other people, it's still your children. And so when someone tells you that your children are not going to see the light of day, it always hurts. So you develop pretty thick scar tissue in the movie. As a writer in the movie business, you better develop pretty thick scar tissue, otherwise you're not going to survive. It's the rejection is constant, and the rejection and correction is constant. Something I haven't, something that writing this novel has changed in a beautiful way. It's I love working with an editor. I'm used to working with notes, but to actually get really incredibly good notes, that's wonderful. That make my book much better. Wonderful. Love it.
Want to talk a whole lot about the process of adapting a novel, but before we move away, because I am devastated that this series is not going to come to be. But it's one thing when you're working with the studio fellows or people who want to give you notes. If Christopher McQuarrie has a note, well, he probably knows. He wrote The Usual Suspects. He's pretty smart.
Yeah.
But when it's Bill Clinton, and you say, well, Mr. Clinton, I think we should, Mr. President, I think we should make this change. And he says, no. Is that more or less the end of the discussion?
No, but only because of him. He was incredibly generous and incredibly respectful, actually. And once he and Jim Patterson realized that first of all, we're doing an adaptation, so some things had to change, which we'll get to. But that we were honoring the book and honoring its source, then they felt comfortable enough to let us exercise our judgment. And I think they really liked what we came up with. So no, it's always a negotiation, even if it's not called that. But it's if you have basic human skills, which President Clinton does more than any other person I've ever met, then you can talk about these things honestly and openly and come to a decision on them. He was not autocratic in any way.
A temptation of mine, if I'm sitting across from a former president, is we talk about the book, we talk about all kinds of things, but sooner or later, when I feel the conversation is comfortable enough, I'm going to say, Mr. President, what do we know about the aliens? What were you informed of? Did you ever have that discussion?
No, I wanted to, because that's also an interest of mine. And so I did want to ask about Area 51 and so on. But no, I was being paid to keep my eye on one ball, So, and he told us amazing stories because we needed to know how certain things worked. The whole allure of the series was that it was going to be inside, and we had the ultimate insider to the White House, helping. So that's what I was digging for, is, what are you wearing when you get the call on the red phone? Where were you? What's it like? 2 a.m, dude. All of those things, and he was super generous with his experience. He very seldom said, I can't talk about that.
Well, even without a TV series, that's a once in a lifetime experience. This kid you're going to carry forever, right?
It was amazing. It was amazing. He showed me a letter that was a gift to him, a letter from Albert Einstein about the potential practical applications of splitting the atom.
Wow.
Yes.
I bet even if you had a year or 2 years just to ask him every question that ever came to mind, there's no way you'd ever cover everything. I bet he's forgotten so many interesting things that have happened to him along the way.
He hasn't forgotten anything. He's amazing. He's amazing. He's amazing.